So we've been in our sowing lessons series and wrestling with the approach that it's not out of greed that we don't give or that we don't tithe, but it's mostly out of fear. But I want to just think about something this weekend in terms of tithing. Leviticus 27:30 says this: "Every tenth of the land's produce, grain from the soil or fruit from the trees, belongs to the Lord. It is holy to the Lord." So that tenth means a tithe, a 10% of one's income. In Malachi chapter 3, verse 10, it says this: "Bring the full 10% tithe into the storehouse, that there may be food in my house." So this is the Lord personally speaking about this 10%, this tithe, bringing it to the storehouse, which most, if not all scholars, I wouldn't say all, most scholars agree would represent the local church. Now, you know, many say that the tithe, the 10%, is an Old Testament thing. It's not a New Testament thing, and you know, I would tend to agree with that. However, we got to look at the big picture that in the Gospels, Jesus still talked about the tithe, the 10%. And some will say, well, the Apostle Paul never talked about it, the epistles never talked about it, and that's true. But I believe, as I read the scriptures, especially what we're going to talk about today, is that because we're on this side of the gospel, there's this given by the apostles and the disciples that we would give even more lavishly. Where the scriptures say, do not commit adultery. Well, Jesus took do not commit adultery and said, do not lust in your heart. Do not murder. Jesus took that and said, if you have angry hatred towards someone in your heart, that's like murdering them. So he took it to the next level. And so a lot of times I think people use the excuse, it's not mentioned in the New Testament, as a way to give less. When we're on this side of the cross, and Jesus always elevated everything up from the old to the new, so you would think the heart would be to give more. But I just want to keep it simple with the tithe, 10%, basic minimum of Scripture, the training wheels of giving as a place to start that I see in the Scripture. So just taking it at face value in that way, I would say, to be honest, for anyone who is thinking about tithing or tithing, the more we have, the harder it is to give. Let me show you what I'm talking about. For example, I happen to have $10. You say, okay, I have $10 and the Lord is calling me to give of this, and we see the basic floor minimum, the beginning, the training wheels of giving is 10%, so that would be $1 of this $10. So I pull out $1, throw it down, I think, oh wow, I still have $9 to roll with. I mean, besides, what can you really buy with $1 if you're honest with yourself? Or maybe you're feeling really generous, so you give a little more. You give $2. Because what can you really buy with $2, and $8 still can carry you a long way. Now then, say the Lord starts blessing you, you're healthy, and God uses your health and your mind for more income and networking and so forth, and your income moves up to $10,000. So you sit down to think about tithing off that $10,000, and you write out that $1,000 check. And of course, if you're giving monthly, that would be divided by 12. Now it gets interesting. Or let's say the Lord is really blessing you and you're bringing home, and I'll just throw a number out, say you're bringing home $60,000 a year. And so you come to the Grace Community website, you want to give online, so you go over here to giving, and you want to give online. I know him. And you go to this place and you say $60,000 a year. That is 10% of 60,000 is $6,000. I'm giving $6,000. I'm tithing $6,000. And if you do it monthly, you see, well, that's really $500 a month. Do you not know what I can buy? What kind of car I can drive? What I can have done to my house with $500 a month? And I'm the... See, it's hard. The more you have, the more difficult it is to give. So think about tithing, meaning it keeps God central in your life. But we don't do that, especially with our finances. For example, take these pies here. I'm going to use this pie as an example. This pie represents everything that God has blessed you with financially. This is the pie of your finances. You know, I got this big mortgage on my house, so you cut the pie because you need to pay that mortgage first, or so you think, right? So you cut the pie because you got to pay that mortgage. That car I'm driving, I shouldn't have bought it, but I look really good in it, and I want to keep that for as long as I can, and so you put that toward the car payment. So you know you got to pay for your credit cards, so you pull that piece out of your financial pie. Kids, so you want to take and put it toward your kids, so you take a little bit maybe and give toward you. And when you think about the Lord, you think, uh-oh, I haven't given, I haven't tithed. And you look down, and what do? You scoop up what's left. Basically, you give God your leftovers. And yet the scriptures say to give God the first fruits. Give God the first fruits, the first 10%, the tithe, that show that He is central to your life. But how often do we do this? So tithing not only teaches us to keep God central in our lives, it also serves to build and grow our faith. So think about it this way. If you're giving God leftovers at the end of the month, that's more like taxes, paying your taxes, not tithing. There's no faith involved there. It's more like duty. Whereas faith, God builds faith and pleasure and joy in Him when we give first. So how about this instead? Take this pie and say, Lord, I give you praise and worship that you've given me the ability to have this kind of income. And unbelievable, Lord, that all you've called me to give is 10%. 10% of what you've blessed me with. And Lord, I give that to you. And Lord, may now I live for your glory as I live on the other 90%. And what's supernatural about this is as we give to the Lord, it involves Him in our finances, and He takes that 90% further with His blessing, a lot further than we would take the 100% on our own. So really, here are the final questions. 100% you without God's blessing? God's central in your life, walking by faith? 10% first goes to Him, believing and knowing, trusting that He will take that 90% further than you could ever take the 100%? That's one question. And then the final question, will you be a believer in Jesus Christ that gives to God first, or simply give Him leftovers?